And ladies and gentlemen, as Admiral said, my name is Rear Admiral John Wade, and I assumed command of Naval Surface and Mine Warfighting Development Center, otherwise known as SMIDC, this past August. And it's an honor to be here today. We just heard from the SWO boss, and his guidance is very clear. But there's also alignment with the CNO and our fleet commanders, Admiral Davidson, Admiral Swift, and that is there's an imperative to increase the lethality and the tactical proficiency of the force, and also to rededicate ourselves to achieving and maintaining sea control. Now, in the near term, it's clearly obvious that to do this, we have to do it here today with the people, with the platforms, the weapons and the sensors that we have currently in our inventory. And so for that, we need to enhance our warrior ethos. We have to shift our mindset from the defense to the offense. I contend that we as a force need to be tougher. Admiral Roden refers to this as carrying a knife in our teeth mentality. We also have to find ways to reduce gaps and seams and to better integrate and mutually support our other communities and the joint force. But most importantly, we need to make tactical thinking, tactical training, and tactical readiness a priority. As we look to the mid and the longer term, we need to innovate, experiment, war game, conduct modeling and simulation. We need to iterate and learn our way forward, create a concept to capabilities to programmatics linkage to build the fleet of the future. There are a lot of stakeholders who are involved in this process. The Surface Force strategy will align and synchronize our actions to do this. For SMIDC, and specifically our warfare tactics instructors, our WITIs, we're involved in all 4 T's that Admiral Roden just referred to. But the most significant, the most impact we have is with tactics and training. And we do it through 4 lines of effort. It's about advanced training, it's about tactical development, it's about operational support to our commanders forward, and then lastly, it's to do capabilities analysis and experimentation. Now I'm going to go into a brief update on where we are and where we're going in those 4 lines of effort. But what I'd like to do is kind of just take a step back, and I'd like to share with all of you how I see the world, what drives me every day, and how I communicate and how I message when I speak to our WITIs, when I speak to wardrooms, to the commanding officers, when I walk into classrooms. And this is what I say. That I've served on a number of ships, numerous deployments, but I have no combat experience in the maritime domain. But I do on the ground in Afghanistan when I commanded a joint interagency team on the border with Pakistan. There are differences between the maritime and the ground domain, but there are also similarities and constants which have application to what we do in the surface force. When I was in Afghanistan, my team and I operated daily in a contested environment. We faced continuous threats, both symmetric, force-on-force, direct and indirect fires, but also asymmetric. IEDs, suicide bombers, vehicle-borne IEDs, from a learning and evolving enemy. My team and I used rules of engagement to determine hostile intent. We used graduated force procedures to defend ourselves. And I've been scared. I've been so scared that my jaw hurt for days because I was clenching my teeth so tightly under stressful conditions. I've had difficulty breathing because of elevated heart rates. I have had diminished motor skills because of rushes of adrenaline. And when things happen, they happen fast, it's chaotic, and it can be violent. The only thing that we have to fall back on when we're placed under such conditions is our procedures and our training. Having the right TTP, training to them, understanding them, knowing them, repeating them, repeat, repeat, repeat. We refer to it as sets and reps, the blocking and tackling. Gives us the confidence and the competence to execute under stressful conditions and uncertainty. It makes us a stronger, a better, a more deterrent force, in that a potential enemy may have second thoughts to take actions because they know there will be consequences. And then, if we must, we're better prepared to fight and win. Ladies and gentlemen, tactics and training really do matter. Now look, I've had command of a couple of ships, I've been to Desron Commodore, I've worked at the TICOM. Material readiness is critically important. It's the foundation from which everything builds upon. Our equipment has to work. Certifications and inspections, they're critical because it makes us hold to a standard. But what I'm trying to say is that, although important, they should not dominate our complete focus and intention. Tactical thinking, tactical training, and tactical readiness must also be a priority. I was in this very room 2 years ago when Admiral Roden introduced the concept of distributed lethality. He then talked about the importance of tactics and training. That resonated with me. Then Jim Kilby stood up with the announcement of SMITIC and what his attack plan was going to be. Last year in this room, Admiral Kilby talked about where we were, where the priorities were, where the progress was. Well, in 5 months after taking command, I just have to commend Jim Kilby for his inspirational leadership, his hard work, also those who were the plank owners of SMITIC. And I'm proud to tell all of you today that SMITIC has reached initial operational capability, and we're already making a difference in the fleet. What I'd like to do is I'll just start with our, I think, most important progress, and that's in our warfare tactics instructors, our WIDIs. Our WIDIs are the ones who are engaged in all 4 of our lines of effort. I call it our center of gravity. They're the engines that make everything possible. A year ago, entering into last year, we had our training for our integrated air missile defense WIDIs. In this past year, we piloted and then started up our baseline WIDI course, which every WIDI now goes to before they go to their robust and disciplined training in each of the mission areas. This past year, we also piloted and stood up our surface and subsurface and our amphibious warfare WTI programs. We produced 72 WTIs, and we now have a current inventory of 125 in our surface Navy. 105 of those WIDIs are on my staff, distributed at our divisions, and also in fleet concentration areas at ATG, Center of Combat Systems, at SWAS, also at the other warfare development centers for the other communities, and they're also in a couple of one-offs like at ONI and at Denver at the Aerospace Data Facility, where we're creating a maritime targeting cell. This past year, we worked with all stakeholders, and PERS 41 in particular. We identified close to 200 distinct WIDI billets. And those WIDI billets will expand beyond where I just told you, and moving out into the training strike groups to CSG 4 and 15, to TACTRE Group PAC and LANT, out to our strike groups. We were looking to train 85 to 90 WIDIs in 2017, and we are on track to meet our goal of 110 every year starting in 2018. Our selection rate is holding at 75%, and the quality of our WIDIs is just absolutely phenomenal. As I look at 2017, our goal is improvement. We're going to take feedback from the major commanders, the COs, the strike group commanders, our other communities, our international partners need to get the feedback on how our Whitties are doing and what do we need to do better to inject that for high-velocity learning into our courses of curriculum. And also, we're going to get feedback from our WTIs as they execute these 4 lines of effort, what they need to better do their jobs and continuously iterate and learn. So the vectors move in the right direction, and improvement for this year is our goal. Let's talk about training. Last year, Admiral Kilby talked about that our surface force is not performing that well as we enter into Comp 2X. There's a couple of reasons for that, but the main one is that their basic phase is really focused on the unit level, and then we roll right into Comp 2X, varsity level sport, totally integrated, and we're just not prepared and ready. And he announced our signature event, which was Surface Warfare Advanced Tactics Training, SWAT. And this past year, we worked with SURF 4 and Fleet Forces and PAC Fleet to get the authorities and approvals to execute a crew des SWAT. Why was this important? So that we have the resources, the time, and also the money, the fuel, the steaming days, so it's codified in the fleet instructions so we can execute. This past October, we executed our first crew des SWAT for the Nimitz Strike Group. Over 100 exercises, crawl, walk, run methodology, increasing complexity, with Whitties on board in all mission areas providing training, and also time in the SOE to do debriefs with reconstruction tools that were built in partnership with NSWC Corona to look, a picture tells 1,000 words, to say what was good, what do we need to improve upon, and what do we need to do for the next exercise. Again, iterative. This past October, we piloted a mine warfare SWAT for USS Gladiator. In August, we were out in 5th Fleet and we measured their performance. We knew what we had going in. We trained to where we thought that they had some shortcomings. This past November, we did another assessment, a 3-fold increase in our ability to classify and ID mines, and also our neutralization. This week, we're executing our first mine warfare SWAT for Dexterous. In March, we're doing our 3rd. Later this summer and fall, we'll be doing mine warfare SWATs in 7th Fleet. This past year, we introduced the Sea Combat Commander course. This is a course that's focused on surface and subsurface warfare, getting exactly what Admiral Roden talked about with sea control. We provided this training for Desron 1 and Desron 9, and this week we're starting a pilot for Fibron 3 before their deployment with the America ARG. We've also reintroduced the Force Air Defense course. We provided that training for all air defense units, but specifically to the Air Warfare Commander for Princeton and Lake Champlain as they're preparing for their deployments. And in a couple weeks, we're going to pilot the same course, but for San Diego, who's going to be the Air Warfare Commander for the America ARG. Sea control cannot be assumed, and we need to provide training for our ARGs, just like we do for our crew des ships. Real quick, because I know I'm running out of time, but I could talk forever to you. But for the last couple of years, SURF 4 and Air 4 have been working together with N96 and 98 to get the funding to build an integrated training facility at Fallon so we can get at the higher end fight with integrated air defense. This facility came up and operational this summer. We tested it with integrated air missile defense Whitties and aviation Whitties. And then this October, we provided that integrated NIFCA fires at a highly classified level for the Nimitz Strike Group. Again, sets and reps, high velocity learning to get at the higher end fight, and we're going to do that for TR and eventually HST as we look to this year. We now have the capacity for Whitties to get out and to help Strike Group commanders prepare for, train for, and execute live fire missile X's. We now have Whitties that go out and help train while we're conducting SHARMs, SURFREMs, submarine commander courses. Talking about the CNO and high-velocity learning and swarming, well, we're swarming exercises. We had 30 Whitties out for Valiant Shield supporting 7th Fleet, CTF-70, Desron 15, and all the ships, all flavors of Whitties providing training. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and the center of gravity for all of this is our warfare tactics instructors. TTP development, real quick. We have 170 tactical publications in the surface force that I'm responsible for. Admiral Kilby last year talked about we got a significant backlog, and that's because of the decommissioning of SWEDGE a couple of years ago. We are where we are. So this year we focused on prioritization to buy back down that backlog, but also to introduce some new capabilities, some tactics for new capabilities like SM-6 in the surface role, CRAM, and also counter UAS. In total this past year, we introduced or refreshed 23 tactical documents. Now that may not be much, but in the last 6 years, the Surface Force has refreshed or introduced just 5 documents a year on average. That's close to a 5-fold increase. Now, as we look to this year, we're going to continue to work this effort. Now, I've had the majority of my capacity in integrated air missile defense and mine warfare, so that's where the refresh is really focused. So for the next year, we're going to now, because we have extra capacity, with the graduation of our WTIs, move into surface, subsurface, and also amphibious warfare. When I look at the support to operational fleet commanders, in 2015, when the WDCs were created, by OPNAV and fleet instructions, we were required to provide support to the fleets. 2 organizations were folded into SMIDC when we stood up. The first was the old NAMC, Naval Air Missile Defense Command. It's now my Integrated Air Missile Defense Division in Dahlgren. And the mine section of NMOC is now my mine division in San Diego. They provide support. The IMD division, for example, responded to 200 separate requests for tactical explanations, recommendations, tactical settings, sensor settings, and also key analysis for fleet commanders. The mine division is a little bit unique because not only are we a WDC, but we are the global mine warfare commander. We have tactical operational requirements in all the fleets. We maintained a 24-hour watch. My team and I stayed in a 96-hour prepared to deploy status, and we scattered to all the fleets for numerous exercises throughout the year. These efforts will continue, but as we continue to build capacity, we will now expand to supporting in the surface, subsurface, and the amphibious warfare domains. Now, what I've talked to you now about the training and about tactical development and about operational support to commanders, that really gets at the near term, about increasing our lethality and improving the tactical proficiency of the force. How we work towards the longer term, it's in the last line of effort, and that's with our capability assessments and with our experimentation. Again, it centers on the WIDIs. As we continue to grow the WIDIs, we have more capacity. Our WIDIs are involved in wargaming, in conducting modeling and simulation. They're supporting NWDC and the fleets and the TICOM in this effort. We now have the capacity to, and are responsible now for the WIP process, the Warfare Improvement Program, where we look at capability gaps and propose .mil-PF solutions that go to the TICOM that are then vetted up to the fleet before they go to ESH-1. Our WIDIs are involved in CONEPS employment for capabilities outside of the FITUP. They're now involved in CONOPS development within the FITUP. Some examples of what we're doing right now: DDG 1000, JSF, LCS, a flow-forward staging base, clutch shot, and a couple of others that are classified. We have a lot going on. If I look at 2016, we made a lot of progress. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of work to do. But I'm telling you, the vectors are in the right direction. My intentions are to maintain rudder amidships with respect to where we are on our lines of effort, but they're going to be informed heavily by the surface force strategy that Admiral Roden has laid out here. And if I really were to tell you what my goal is, to build capacity, okay, for this coming year, not only in quantity, but in quality. So ladies and gentlemen, let me just wrap up here with a very, very quick story, and that is this past summer, my counterpart at Fallon, Hi-Fi Harris, had a air wing there for their training. We have 3 surface integrated air missile defense WIDIs that are on the staff there. One of them was assigned to carry through with a couple of air defense training events. For the first event, all the pilots came into the auditorium, and the WIDI was in his flight suit, wearing the patch, The aviators didn't know what the patch was. They just saw a patch, and it garners a lot of respect and admiration in the aviation community. And they went through their brief, and they executed the mission. They came back. They went into the auditorium. Our Whitty was standing there, again in his flight suit, went through the reconstruction, went over the goods, the others, recommendations for the next exercise that was going to take place 48 hours later. The aviators went off, conducted their planning. 48 hours later, they came back into the auditorium. Our Whitty was standing at the front in the flight suit. They did the pre-brief. They executed the mission. While they were doing the mission, Hi-Fi Harris had this Whitty change in his NWUs. Had his patch on his left pocket. When they came in after the mission, he wasn't at the front of the auditorium. He was off in the back in a little room waiting till everyone was in their seats. When everyone was sitting down, Hi-Fi had him come in from the back. As he walked down the stairs, the aviators heard the footsteps, looked over their shoulder, and they saw that this Whitty was wearing MWUs. Hi-Fi tells me that kind of a roar started to come out, and everyone started talking. Holy crap, the guy's a SWO. The aviators had an aha moment. They see that we're taking tactics and training seriously. It's not parochial. It's something that we have to do, because if we're better, they're better, the submarines are better, the information warfare professionals are better. This is exactly what we need to do to increase our lethality and to increase the tactical proficiency of our force and to get at sea control. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.